Welcome to the Hope Podcast, 10 minutes of weekly encouragement for parents of kids who learn differently. My name is Jimelle Carlson, and I'm so glad you're here. I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hey friends, welcome back. I'm so glad that you're here. Today I want to talk with you about the field of education and how to figure out what is the right solution for your child when it comes to schooling. There are so many different options for kids out there. And I know as a parent, we want what's best for our children, and we really want to find the best support for them and the place that is going to help them thrive the most. And it can be very, very confusing. It's confusing for parents of kids who don't struggle with learning challenges, but for parents who have a child that is struggling with self-esteem issues and learning disabilities and that type of thing, it can just be excruciating trying to figure out the correct solution. So with that in mind, I just want to share with you 4 things that I think are really important when you're trying to figure out what direction to go when it comes to educating your child. Whether it is a homeschool option that you're looking at, a public school option, or a private school option, these are the 4 things that I think are really important that you consider when you're evaluating the different options that you do have. The first thing that I would say is that it's really important that you find a school that is going to help your child resolve whatever learning challenge that they have. There's a lot of options out there that are providing compensation techniques, ways for your kids to work around their learning challenges, as opposed to helping your child resolve their learning challenges. I appreciate that there's a desire to help our kids not have to face things that are hard for them. And I think that there's a lot of love and heart in the ideas that have come behind creating these different compensation techniques that we've come up with to help kids who struggle with writing and reading and that type of thing. But the problem is, if you are not addressing the root cause, you're basically setting your child up to have to live with that learning challenge for the rest of their entire life. You know, a good analogy that I give to parents is, it would be very similar to if you broke your leg and someone gave you crutches to be able to walk. Well, that's wonderful. Crutches are a great invention. And while your leg is broken, it's great that you could have these crutches to help you get around. But long-term game plan that you're going to just live with those crutches for the rest of your life? No, it would be much more ideal that instead of having the crutches forever, that maybe is just a temporary thing for a few weeks even, but instead that you would go to physical therapy or get the surgery that you need, that you would address whatever is wrong with your leg so that you don't just have to hobble through life in crutches. You instead can put those crutches down and learn to walk again and then run, you know? It's the same with our children. They don't have to live with these learning challenges. If you find a school or resources that help them be able to address what is going on below the level of the diagnosis, whether it's dyslexia or it's ADHD, something is going on with their memory, brain speed, attention, critical thinking skills, that type of thing. You can find schools that like our school, for example, where you can do exercises that resolve those areas that are not working well. You can address memory, brain speed, and attention. You can, if a child is struggling in the area of reading, writing, math skills, as opposed to just giving them a calculator or a device that helps them type out answers instead of having to write, or does spell check for them instead of having to learn how to spell, you can actually help them do things that actually resolve those learning challenges and sets them up for a great future. Like I said, the main number one thing that I would recommend is avoid schools that are going to offer you compensation techniques as opposed to solutions that are going to help resolve what is going on with your child. The second thing that I would highly recommend is that you find a schooling option that is not just focused on helping the child graduate from high school. Often that is just when your child is in elementary school and up through high school, the main focus is often, how do we get them through high school? How do we get that high school diploma? The problem with that is if you're not focused on after graduation, you can really set your child up for a challenging future. There's a lot of schools that will help your child simply get a diploma. And what they're not focused on, again, is what happens after they get that diploma. Statistically, 80% of kids with learning challenges graduate with a high school diploma across the nation, but only 5 to 20% of kids that graduate with a high school diploma end up going to college, as opposed to kids in general population, 60 to 70% of them go into college. So again, you can find a school that will help them get a high school diploma, but if after the high school diploma, only 5% of kids or up to 20% are even moving on to college, then something is off about that. And even if the kid is not going on to college, and perhaps their goal is to get a job, even their statistics show that kids with learning challenges, only about 21% of them go on to have a job after graduation. So again, going back to as early as elementary school and definitely by high school, I highly recommend that you make sure that the school your child is enrolled in is focused on the long term. I have actually had students come into our program where they've transferred over from a public high school. I actually have one student in particular that I'm thinking of. She had finished ninth grade in a local public high school. And when she transferred over, we got her transcript, and she had gotten straight A's in all of the ninth grade high school subjects, in algebra and ninth grade English. And on paper, it looked like she was doing well. Like if she had stayed in that public school, in all likelihood, it would look like she got straight A's all the way through high school. Well, we did testing, and she was actually working at a third grade level. Like her actual abilities were third grade reading. And I don't even know that her math was that high. But again, in public high school, they were giving her A's because they were just providing her with support to get that high school diploma ultimately. So my advice would be, just be aware of situations like that. I understand we all want our child to get a high school diploma. That's a great goal to have. But way more important than that piece of paper is that the school that your child is in, that they are helping your child grow to their full potential, that they are helping your child actually learn, not just pass classes that they're not capable of passing. That leads me to the third thing, and that is that the school that you choose for your child, that you make sure that they are focused on your child's individual needs. Every single child, every single human has a unique brain. Our brains are actually as unique as our fingerprints. Nobody has the same brain. We all have different strengths and weaknesses. We all have different abilities for growth, and we all have a unique path, ahead of us. And it's really important that the school that you choose is not trying to take your child and fit them into the norm. Your child is going to have the most growth if you find a solution, find a school that is going to focus on understanding your specific child, understanding their different strengths and weaknesses, what helps them grow the most, and what is going to ultimately help them meet their long-term goals. Find a solution that is focused on your child as opposed to your child fitting into their program or your child fitting into trying to be like other kids. Like that should not be the ultimate goal. We were not born to be duplicating each other or trying to be like everybody else. We were born with like unique qualities and unique abilities. And what's going to be best for your child is that they end up in an environment that is going to promote them becoming the best version of who they were created to be. And then the last thing I would highly recommend is that you find a school. And I actually think this could almost be my number one recommendation. But the last thing I'm going to recommend in this podcast is that you make sure to find an environment for your child that is addressing their psychological needs. It is very common for kids who struggle with learning challenges to struggle with self-esteem issues too. It's actually very common for kids as a whole nowadays to struggle with self-esteem issues. There's so much going on in our culture and in our environment that really makes it hard for kids to feel good about themselves. But add to just the typical things that are kind of coming up against our youth, the fact that a child might have a learning challenge, and that can make it even harder to feel like they're okay, to feel like they're normal, to feel like they're a worthy person. And so it's really important that whatever school you choose has some kind of game plan and support system for building self-esteem and helping your child feel good about themselves and feel worthy and feel safe. If a child does not feel safe in their environment, that means that they're going to definitely be in a constant state of fight, flight, and freeze mode. And if that is the case, then they're not going to be able to learn. It's going to make those learning challenges even more challenging for them because their prefrontal cortex will basically be shut off as they are just in survival mode, trying to feel okay at school and get through the day and that type of thing. I would say that that's a huge component, is finding a school that, like I said, makes your child feel safe, makes them feel like they belong. Having learning challenges does not mean something is wrong with you. We all have different strengths and weaknesses in our brain, and your child deserves to be in an environment that helps them know that they're okay, just how they are, no matter how fast or slow that they learn, no matter what their strengths and weaknesses are in their brain. They are normal and have amazing qualities. And so you want to find an environment that is really promoting that and helping them feel that sense of safety and security so that they are able to actually even learn. Those are the 4 things that I'd recommend as you're looking for a school. I know it is so hard and confusing, like I said, as you are looking at your different options. And I just want you to know that it is hard to find the one solution that is going to cover all your child's needs. I know that it is. Just choose one thing. Definitely make sure that you are looking out for their psychological well-being and trying to find a school that is going to focus on their individual needs and that is going to help them be the best version of who they were created to be. We'll talk more about this in the coming weeks. I actually want to talk with you more about some of the solutions that we are doing at our school to address some of these areas as far as compensation techniques go and the psychology behind what's important with helping to build self-esteem in our children and youth. We'll be talking about that more in the next coming weeks. In the meantime, I hope that you have a great rest of your week. And I just want you to know and remember that I am thinking about you guys all the time and I'm praying for you daily. I am praying that you have a great week and that God gives you the strength and the courage and the rest that you need as a parent. Remember that you're not alone in your journey. We're here in this together and you're doing a great job. Okay? I'll talk to you next week. Thank you again for listening to the Hope Podcast. If you'd like to connect with me or offer suggestions for topics you'd like covered in future episodes, you can visit me on Instagram at Jimelle Carlson. And if you'd like to learn more about Foundations Cognitive Schools, you can visit our website at foundationscognitive.com.